Hello, thank you for joining us for this session, Zero Energy Homes Show Continuing Strong Growth. I am Connie Umphris, Communications Manager here at New Buildings Institute. Before we begin, I have a couple of housekeeping things to tell you about. First, you are muted and we cannot hear you. This helps keep the background noise down so that everyone can better hear the speakers. I want to direct you to the dashboard that you should be able to see on the right-hand side of your screen. If you are having technical difficulties and cannot see the slides or hear our speakers, you can use this question pane in the dashboard to let us know and we will help you as we go. Please ask questions in the question pane as they come up. We will take these questions at the end of the session. At the end of the webinar, you will be given the opportunity to take a short survey, and you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow with links to the recording and slides for this session. Let's kick off the session with an introduction to my colleague, Alexi Miller. Alexi is a senior project manager here at NBI and the lead engineer. He brings insight and analysis about cutting-edge technologies and strategies to diverse stakeholders as part of a wide-ranging effort to improve the energy performance of the built environment. Alexi leads several programs and initiatives at NBI, including Zero Energy Building Certification, the Grid Optimal Initiative, Public Buildings Portfolio Management, and the Getting to Zero Buildings database. Alexi will be introducing the rest of the panel. Alexi, over to you.
Thanks, Connie. I'd like to introduce today's panel. First, actually will be Richard Willingham, whose picture is unfortunately not shown here, but he is definitely with us, I promise. Richard is the chair at Team Zero. Richard has focused his writing, publishing, and marketing career on energy efficiency and environmental sustainability. Since 1980, when he launched the magazine Energy Management Canada, he's maintained that sustainable buildings cost less over their lifetime than unsustainable buildings. When he was CEO of Motum B2B, he worked to craft and deliver that message for brands, both big and small, among them BASF, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Enbridge, Honeywell, Lafarge, Ontario Hydro, and Philips Lighting. Richard's personal and professional vision is that one day everyone will be able to live, work, and play in a net zero energy building. Anne Edminster is an international expert on sustainable residential construction and zero net energy. A principal developer of Lead for Homes and authored Energy Free Homes for a Small Planet, the award-winning guide to designing and building zero energy homes. She consults on zero energy initiatives throughout North America, served as a 2015 US DOE Solar Decathlon juror, and is a board member and the project director for the Team Zero. She collaborates with building professionals, utilities, nonprofits, supply chain clients, investors, public agencies, and homeowners to create leading edge projects and advocate for zero energy and low carbon building solutions at all scales. Finally, Jeff Farrell plays a unique role at Mandalay Homes as the Chief Technology Officer. Jeff oversees Mandalay's home innovation, implementation, and strategies to improve efficiency, durability, health, and comfort while maintaining market competitiveness. Through partnerships and key alliances, Mandalay leverages the latest in construction technology through his ongoing efforts. Jeff has been with Mandalay Homes since 2013 in various roles. Jeff studied aeronautical science at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in disciplines including engineering and aeronautical performance. In addition to his duties for Mandalay Homes, Jeff sits on the leadership board for the Energy and Environmental Building Alliance. Welcome all, and I'm sure you're looking forward as much as I am to hearing from these three presenters. A note about New Buildings Institute. NBI is a 20-year-old nonprofit focused on enhancing energy performance across the built environment in making buildings better for people and for the environment. We work across three program areas: building and program innovation, zero energy leadership and market development, and codes and policy. And we do so through our theory of market change, where we lay out a vision, we define thought leadership based on that vision, we do cutting edge research into technologies and strategies to see that vision through. We put solutions out there in the market ready for people to use, and then we advance codes and policy using that toolkit we've developed and put out there for people. Today's agenda, we're going to hear first some highlights from the very fresh, hot off the presses, 2018 Team Zero inventory of zero energy homes, first from Richard and then from Anne. Jeff will then take it to talk about the Mandalay zero energy story. I will have some announcements and some wrap up content at the end, and I'll introduce a few resources that I hope will be helpful for people, and then we'll go to Q&A. All right, Richard, take it away. Let me know when you'd like to advance slides.
Thank you, Alexi. Good morning, everyone, and a very big welcome from Team Zero, a new name probably to most of you, but I think you'll remember us as the Net Zero Energy Coalition, which started in Canada and then became a continental not-for-profit. My task today is to share with you just a few words about who we are and why we exist, and why we think the annual inventory is so very, very important. Anne Edminster, who's a member of the Team Zero board, is going to give you lots of details in just a few minutes. I just want to draw your attention to this big headline. Just take a look at that. 59% growth in the total number of zero energy housing units. Yes, it's still very small market penetration, but we believe we're at the bottom of a very steep bell curve. So next slide, please. So as promised, let's take a look at what prompted this name change. About a year ago, Sam Rashkin at the Department of Energy asked the former NZEC if we could help bring together the huge number of different plans, programs, platforms, initiatives, not-for-profits who are all using the word zero. Why did we do that? We wanted to find out what we have in common and develop that into a common agenda, a common purpose, and a common mission. And in April this year in Golden, Colorado, we did just that. We called it a think tank. It was held at the National Renewable Energy Laboratories headquarters, and we are on our way with a new group of people. You can see all of these different organizations that took part in the think tank. And so briefly, what lies ahead for us? A national consumer awareness campaign, which came out of the think tank. It's one of our deliverables. The aim of that campaign will be to drive home buyers towards understanding why they want, why they need, and why they will buy zero. Next slide, please, Alexi. So job one for us is the inventory. And we're going to talk about numbers, and Anne's going to give you numbers and about data, and how we tried to get answers to those three big questions at the top of the slide. It's worth reminding us, I think, why numbers are so important. I would say, first of all, not everyone believes us yet. Numbers help people believe. Builders thinking of starting to build zero energy need reassurance, but not just clever words. They also need proof of market. So do the material and technology providers, those who decide to redirect and refocus the performance of what they sell to builders. So once we can prove that that bell curve I referred to is really steep and going upwards, those decisions will become easier. Next slide, please. So what's next? I think what's next is very much up to the 100 or so of you online at the moment. We've done very well with the inventory so far, but there are some buts. With respect and thanks, I would say, to the dedicated experts, volunteers, and funders who made it possible, I would say it's still not enough. If you believe that market data is going to help move the mountain, we need you, all of you online at the moment, to share with us what we need to do to improve, what we need to do better. We have outlined plans for the 2019 inventory, but it's not too late for all of you to guide us as to what is deeper, what is better, what is more relevant, and what is more usable. And most important of all, what will move the mountain faster. That's all I have to say for now. I'd like to hand over to Anne. Thank you.
Okay, could we have the next slide? Thanks, Alexi. Good morning, everyone, and afternoon for those of you who are east of me. As Richard already mentioned, we're showing a 59% growth over last year, which is not quite as big a leap as we had the prior year, but we're still pretty excited about this rate of growth because it's really showing that the movement is sustaining and it is a pretty steep curve. So that's the big news. And so last year was not anomalous, and we're very happy about that. That's kind of the macro picture. Let's move on to the next slide for a little bit more about what that means. So one of the things that we have come to recognize while working on this project is that there's more news about zero energy residential development that comes to us pretty much every day. So the minute we close the inventory, we hear about more, and yet we can't put it into the report. We park it into our database to report in next year's inventory. And then we hear from someone else and someone else. And what this story really tells us is there's a lot more going on than we can possibly capture in the time available. So our speculation and very strong belief from this experience is that we really are not capturing all of the activity. And we don't see that as being a bad thing. We see that as being a good thing. It means that there's really quite a bit more going on. And also, I think one of the inferences that I'm drawing is that net zero energy growth is starting to become more organic. In other words, it's no longer an activity that's driven exclusively by the sort of early adopters and market movers and shakers. It's now diffusing more widely through the influence of media, not necessarily by people knowing the inner circle and learning directly, but more just hearing about it, really gravitating to the notion and jumping in with both feet to do it themselves. So that's maybe not a fact, but there's strong evidence that that's what's going on and that there's really a much larger number than the 22,000 some odd units that we happen to have learned about in time to include in the report. And the last bullet point is just a little spoiler alert for one of our later slides. What we include in most of our numbers that we're reporting here today and in the report are projects in 3 phases. Those in construction, those actually in design, so that's earlier stage, in construction and completed. But yet there's another 31,000 or thereabouts units that are actually in the planning stage. Now, we don't include those in sort of the big analysis because, as we all know, not all plans come to fruition. So once funding is committed to design, they generally are more real. Those also can sometimes evaporate, and we have experienced that, but this is a very dynamic picture and some encouraging numbers. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, another one of the trends that's very encouraging is an increase in performance. So we had about 2/3 of our overall units this year in the zero energy ready category and 29% in the zero energy category. So I'm kind of I'm jumping into the middle of the slide and working backwards. What this means is we've had a migration of about 7% that have gone from zero energy ready to zero energy. So we're seeing a little bit of upward migration, more than a little bit. I think 7% it's fair to say that that's significant. Net positive units have been very consistently performing about 4.5% of the stock. So that's also a very exciting and encouraging trend. Let's go to the next slide, Alexi. Now, here's another one, and there's a lot of information on this slide, and I think I often find that I'm challenged to explain this in a way that makes sense to everybody. So we'll try it a couple of different ways. Starting on the left, these numbers represent the number of units in projects where there are at least 2 units in the project. So in other words, we're setting aside the one-off projects, the single bespoke custom homes. And what are left are broken down into roughly 1/3 single family and 2/3 multifamily. But that's a lot of single family homes in projects comprising 2 or more units. And the story that this tells is that most of even the single family development is clearly a commercial, profit-driven undertaking and or affordable housing. So these are businesses. These are not just general contractors. They are people who are in the business of providing housing. So again, sorry, I can't say that more succinctly, but I think it deserves belaboring a little bit because it's a significant point. We have also seen that as a persistent trend throughout the 4 years of the study, persistent and increasing. Okay, moving to the right-hand side of the slide, we're showing the breakdown of overall the single family versus multifamily units. And another trend that's very, very evident here is that multifamily started out kind of 50-50, break even in our inaugural year of 2015, and have been creeping up year by year to represent a much more dominant fraction of all of the zero energy housing stock. So we're approaching 3/4 of all the units are in multifamily. So this tells us something about our urbanizing culture, but it also tells us that zero energy is not just achievable, again, in that, let's say, higher income realms, but also in more market rate and affordable realms where multifamily is very dominant. So again, I think it's important that we understand and help communicate to the world at large that zero energy isn't just one of those boutique things for those few who can afford it. It's very affordable, very doable in all kinds of housing contexts. Thank you. Let's move on to the next. Okay, now we get a little bit of a picture of our geographic distribution. This map, as you can see, is color coded. So the light blue represents the one state, my home state, I'm proud to say, that has more than 5,000 zero energy residential units. Pink represents states with 1,002 states and provinces, with apologies to Canadians on the call, with 1,000 to 4,999 units. Moving down to the lavender, 100 to 999. The goldenrod is 99 down to 10, and then the pale gray 0 to 9 units. So the main messages here are looking at where, oh, and sorry, and then the numbers, the little white dots with black numbers in them that are infinitesimal, but you will get this slide deck so you can look more closely. These correspond to the city listing on the right. So the top zero energy cities by the number of residential units. And one of the things that's important to see here is where those units are clustered. And what we see is the strongest activity is in the Northeast, in California, and the West in general. And these are also the areas where there are the strongest zero energy policies and or some significant market leaders. And we'll say a little bit more about that on subsequent slides. Before we leave the map, though, I also want to point out there's a significant thing in the bottom right-hand table. where we show the breakdown between the US and Canadian units. Canada, we don't show the prior years, but Canada really made a big jump this year. And whether that's just reporting, maybe we got to more of our Canadian colleagues this year, or whether there's a real boom going on there, we don't quite know yet. What we do know is we're showing a lot stronger zero energy activity in Canada than in prior years, which is also quite exciting. All right, let's move on to the next. Okay, so about those market leaders and why our friend Jeff Farrell is on this webinar. We're very excited to have Jeff join us because Mandalay is in fact a big part of the story about the strength of the West and Arizona in particular. So Mandalay Homes, and Jeff, I do sincerely hope these numbers are up to date, but as I mentioned earlier, the minute we close the inventory for the year, we learn more. So perhaps these numbers are even larger by now. But as of our closing numbers, we had Mandalay showing 23 zero energy projects totaling over 1,100 units. 11,000 would be fabulous, maybe next year. Mandalay also has the largest single family project with 323 homes under construction at Mountain Gate in Clarkdale. Now, the largest completed project in Arizona is by Capstone Homes, and that's Flagstone Meadows with 24 homes at the zero energy ready level. Now, altogether, Arizona's contribution is huge. Added to California, we've also got good strength in Colorado and Texas, giving the U.S. Southwest the #1 position as the strongest zero energy region. Haven't shown it here, but the second strongest region collectively is in the U.S. Northeast and Ontario, Canada. All right, let's move to the next slide. Okay, so here's again, the spoiler alert showing we're very close to an additional 31,000 units in planned projects. And notable that some of these projects are really quite large, larger than anything that's actually broken ground to date. So if these come to fruition, we're going to see some more big jumps in numbers. We also reported the Newhall Ranch project last year, and because of the size and because the sensitive development picture in the Los Angeles region where this is taking place is a slow-moving project, but it is still on the books. So we certainly hope they swell the numbers next year. The other, on the right-hand side of the slide, some other trends we wanted to point out that are not strictly all about zero energy units, but are important parts of the overall picture of what's happening in this segment of the market, is there's rapidly growing interest activity in community microgrids, where not only are homes achieving zero energy performance levels, but there's more and more effort to have those homes work together and work cooperatively with the grid to provide additional capabilities, such as providing emergency electrical power during crises times. So, and other sort of cooperative functions for improved grid functionality, which I'm sure Alexi would be happy to elaborate on. There's also a very, very strong movement towards full electrification, as California and certainly many other governmental entities are starting to say, energy is important, but really we've been using energy as a proxy for carbon emissions, but they're not the same. And carbon emissions are much, much higher from fossil fuels, for example, than they are from renewable energy sources. And while we can, in an ideal future, which we're all working towards, produce our energy sustainably through use of the sun and wind and tides and so forth, we really do not have the same opportunity with fossil fuels. And so that means more and more folks who are in this community are really saying electrification is the future. We're not going to be putting fossil fuels into our zero energy homes. So keep watching that trend. Grid harmonization, as I mentioned while talking about community microgrids, is also really important. And this is another somewhat complicated topic, but from my vantage point in California, where we set a policy goal back in 2006 to target zero net energy, what's happened is as the state has moved in that direction and developed further iterations of our energy code and all of the kind of policy and program instruments that accompany that, there's been the dawning realization that zero energy on a net annual basis does not really solve all of our demand issues, because an annual balance doesn't mean we can meet our energy needs adequately on an hour by hour, day by day, season by season basis. So harmonizing with the grid and its capabilities and limitations becomes increasingly important, which also means we're increasingly looking at the role of energy storage, both in batteries and in thermal applications. And then finally, again, I've already spoken about zero carbon, zero emissions in the context of electrification. So increasingly, again, we're seeing policies shift from a previous focus on energy to a present focus on carbon and emissions. Next slide. Okay, and this is the wrap-up slide, and it's really just a list of resources. I know, again, Alexi has many more for you all. This is just a few of our top ones we'd like to point you to, and hope you will avail yourselves and join Team Zero, swell the ranks, and keep this thing happening faster and faster. Thanks so much for joining us today. And now I believe we're over to Jeff.
All right, there we go. It unmuted. Perfect. Again, everybody, welcome. Thank you for having me. MBI and Team Zero. Really, really interesting information that's been presented so far. An amazing movement, I think, that's happening in the marketplace. A lot of it driven by code. A lot of it being driven, thankfully, by builders and developers that want to get out in front of things, that are seeing zero as a proposition, as a differentiator in their marketplace. Certainly that is one of our drivers. Our owner, Dave Everson, would tell you that he doesn't like being told to do anything by anyone. Therefore, we innovate on our own, on our own terms, on our own timeline, so that we are in control of what we're doing and not reacting to, code changes or policy changes, or what, the builder down the street is doing, and how do we stay relevant in that case. So I think it's a very encouraging climate that we're in, and studies and information, any information that we can be armed with, like is coming out of Team Zero, are just amazing resources for us as industry professionals, utilities, energy raters, specifiers, architects, builders, to make the case that this is the right way to go, and that just building the code and doing what we've done for the last 100 years isn't going to get it done. And eventually it's going to be to the detriment of those types of builders that don't want to get out in front of it and see the light and understand that there's a better way to do it that yields benefits. Go ahead and pop a slide for me if you would, Alexi, there. So this is just a quick kind of intro to the way we approach things. We have never been a code builder. In the last 7 years, our goal without renewable energy was to deliver a HERS 50 home or lower. So we've really focused on the assembly of the home. We focused on good energy details, good air sealing details, good components, HVAC, ventilation, fresh air ventilation, those types of things, to really make the base asset of the home the best it can be. And this is just kind of a quick depiction. Again, just a little bit of background on Mandalay Homes. We build about 220 homes a year. We build in Phoenix, North Phoenix, Northern Arizona, We'll be moving into Flagstaff in the next year or so here. So we cover 3 different climate zones, 2B, 4B, and 5 in our construction practices. And kind of this little synopsis you can see here is a HERS 47 home, which is what we average without renewables, yields about $115 a month utility bill on standard rate plans. That includes all the fees and charges and everything. That is the number that is spit out from energy modeling through RIM rate, for ResNet, for our certifications. What we actually find is, thankfully, thanks ResNet and all those guys, this is actually a pretty conservative number. We're actually seeing in utility bills that we collect back about 15% better performance out of our homes in actuality than the modeling yields. So I just want to make that distinction. Most of our homes are sub $100 a month without renewables on them. Then what we're going to talk about in a moment here is kind of an innovation that we're rolling out that Ann was speaking to, kind of primed me for, which I'm thankful for that, is that all of our new homes, everything that we're producing now, have a small solar array and a battery or energy storage and management system in them standard. This is bringing us down to about a HERS 25, and our homeowners are seeing about $45 a month utility bills, again including all the fees and charges and taxes. And just again to say this again, I build in Phoenix. It's 190 something degrees down there right now. People are used to having $400 and $500 a month electric bills in the summer, and I just got one from a gentleman last month that was $43. So this is an amazing thing. These are not HERS 0 homes at this point, and we'll talk about why in a minute here. And then we just demonstrate also HERS 0. We can get down to 0. It's not something we're actively pursuing right now, and we'll talk about that again. Slide, please. So again, just kind of circling back to the way we approach this problem, conundrum, if you will. It's really about the assembly. With so much going on in California with the 2020 initiative, some of the amazing work that's happening in Colorado, certainly what some of our neighbors and friends are doing here in Arizona, assembly matters. I think it goes without saying in certain circles that the better the home is, the less the home consumes as a base asset, the easier and less expensive it is to get to everything else. If the home is going to consume 15,000 kilowatt hours of energy in a given year, the renewable offset that you have to put on that home to offset that is astronomically larger than what we're achieving here in Arizona. So that picture in the bottom left there, that's one of our model homes over in the Mountain Gate community in Clarkdale that Ann mentioned. This is 323 lots that we purchased in this community. They will all have a small solar array and the battery storage and management system. That's 6 panels on that rooftop, 1.9 kW solar array on that rooftop. That home's utility bill last month was $15.88. And it's through innovations like getting the home right first. This home will only consume about 6,000 kilowatt hours of energy in the course of a year. So when we use that as our base math and start working backwards against renewables, start working backwards against energy storage, and working backwards to meet a rate plan, which I'm going to talk about in a moment here, it all makes much more sense. And that's how we offer these things standard. This community is not add-on solar and battery storage for $30,000. This community is not, you get a great home, you get a good home, but if you want to be great, here's the option to do it. This is the way these homes come. Our homeowners sign up for a very particular rate plan once they're in the home and established, and we learn their habits. And they're seeing in this community, they're seeing on average utility bills in July in Arizona. It was 104 degrees in Clarkdale yesterday. Sub $40 a month utility bills. These are blue collar families living in these homes, police officers, firefighters, nurses, stay-at-home parents. It's so important to us as a builder that these types of innovations, these types of things are leveraged for everybody. This isn't a $1 million home. This is a $300,000 home, market rate home this innovation is included. The homeowners are getting benefit of tax rebates, all these really interesting things to enable this type of thing for everybody, because a $40 a month utility bill is much more important to someone like me than it is to, somebody that is uber wealthy, or, it's a secondary home or anything like that. If my utility bill goes from 115, 120 down to 40, that's $70, $80 a month I can use for other things. It's a vacation for the family. It's saving for college. It's paying down credit card debt or student loan debt. Those are the important people that we're really focused on driving these innovations towards. So, when Alexi gave my bio at the beginning, the only part of that really stands out to me, that's really important to me, is that my mission at Mandalay Homes is to drive these innovations, partner and utilize the amazing resources of vendors and manufacturers that are out there to maintain market competitiveness. This isn't a niche thing. This isn't a quirky thing. This is every home we build every single day. When somebody walks through my sales office door, I have to be competitive with that guy down the street that's building an Energy Star home or a code built home, and then say, and. Yes, you get the granite. Yes, you get the great tile. Yes, you have amazing views. Yes, you have a home you can live in. Yes, it has indoor, outdoor living. And it will save you hundreds of dollars a year in utility bills. And it will be healthier. And it will be more comfortable. And it will be more durable. You're going to spend more time living, less time maintaining your home in a Mandalay home, because this is how we attack the problem. Next slide. So that leads us to Ion. Ion, we paid a lot of money to come up with this. Ion Series is the brand that we're tying this all under. So this is basically the Mandalay home, a HERS 47 home, HERS 50 home or better, a great base asset, a really tight, energy efficient, well-designed home with everything that people are looking for. And then we add solar collection on the rooftop, and we add energy management, energy storage. This is a fully electric home from a performance standpoint. We do option gas. When they option gas, they can do things like cooktops, stoves, fireplaces, gas stubs for barbecues, but they cannot option back into gas furnace or gas water heating. That is all electric, so that we can control those assets and utilize the amazing solar collection and storage that we've innovated in these homes. So the whole reason behind Ion is something that's pretty unique to Arizona, and I see it coming. We've been talking with utilities in New Mexico, Utah, Colorado, a little bit in California. We are, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, we are one of our utilities here in Arizona is the first utility to combine both time of use and demand charges into a rate plan to incentivize better energy usage. And basically, this rate plan that we qualify for in these homes says every hour of the day, except for 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday, you can have power for 4.75 cents a kilowatt hour, less than a nickel, because what they're signaling is we have an abundance of clean, renewable, inexpensive energy on the grid. For the love of Pete, somebody buy it. Please, somebody buy it. That's what they're saying to us. And then they're saying from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. when we go into peak, we've got a problem. The sun's going down. Everyone's coming home. They're charging their iPads, charging their cars, turning on the stove, taking showers. Our duck curve in Arizona is dramatic. And what the rate plan was designed to do was it was designed to encourage better energy usage, better energy management to that very simple rate plan. And it basically what it's saying is go throw your main breaker from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. If you don't demand any energy from the grid from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., every other hour of the day, weekends, holidays, you can have it for less than a nickel. It's pretty simple. But most homeowners don't want to go throw their main breaker at 3 p.m. and then turn it back on at 8. They want to watch TV, cook dinner, live, have lights. So how do we tackle that? Well, Ion is designed to tackle that. The energy management, the storage system, which is what you see there on the right there with our CEO and the CEO of Sonnen, is a 10 kilowatt hour battery, essentially. That's the bottom of it. And then the whole upper portion is the inverter and all the brains that through software and firmware and management that is included as part of the service, we can tune every single home to do exactly what we need it to do, which is use solar energy live in the home. Any excess gets stored in the battery. Our homes export nothing to the grid, next to nothing to the grid on a daily basis. And at 2:59 every day, all of our homes kick over to battery power. They run off grid essentially. They're dark to the grid from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. minimum, or until the battery's dead. I have some homeowners that barely make it 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. I have some homeowners that run on battery all night. It really just comes down to, lifestyle and behavior. But the idea was we wanted to go to our homeowners and say, don't make any changes. If you come home and cook dinner for the family every night, cook. If you come home and want to turn on TV and watch Dancing with the Stars or whatever, do it. You don't need to live a different lifestyle. You don't need to alter your behavior. We've engineered around that with Ion, and the Sonnen system in our case adapts to their lifestyle needs. We watch it, manage it, and make sure that we can deliver on that promise every day, regardless. So if you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Alexi. This is the graph on the right is from 3 days ago. So again, this is July. It is July in Arizona, just like everywhere else. This is a home down in Wickenburg Ranch, which is a resort community near Phoenix. On this day, I can tell you it was 111 degrees. This is a 4,300 square foot home, and it operated on this day for $1.38. So what you can kind of see from the graph, the blue is usage, the yellow is the solar. You can kind of see the solar production in the background there. There's a little bit of cloud cover moving through. The purple line is us charging the battery and then discharging it, and then the red is the battery discharging against house load to make it dark to the grid. So where you can see the red start up there, that's 3 p.m. where that red started up, and it ran, in this case, it ran till almost midnight on stored, clean, renewable, cheap power, either locally harvested off its solar array or harvested off the grid. Because again, at a nickel a kilowatt hour off the grid, I can't put solar on a rooftop that cheap. So why not buy everybody else's solar? That's essentially what Arizona's grid is during the day, is all this solar export from homes and municipal buildings and rooftops and ground mount solar that's being pumped into the grid. Those homeowners are getting benefit of export rates based on their rate plan, and then APS is looking for our utility. APS is looking for customers for this clean renewable energy that's been diligently, thoughtfully harvested and put into the grid. And we say, yeah, we'll take it, we'll use it, we'll store it in our battery. And then essentially what this home has done is it's running on clean renewable solar energy from about 8 a.m. until 11 o'clock at night. So we're really only using grid power in the middle of the night, and then a little bit during the day when demand in the house exceeds what the solar can produce. And the goal again is that this home exports nothing to the grid. All the solar that's produced on its rooftop is used either live or stored in the battery for later use. So that's really the intent of what an Ion home is. We're not looking to exacerbate the problem. We're not looking to add to the issue of overproduction during the day. We're looking to harvest what's out there to take advantage of the rate plans and things that have been offered to the public through these public rate plans. Import only, store, and then export against our load only. What's interesting about these systems right now is that's all we're allowed to do right now. Everything has to move through the meter. So kilowatt in, kilowatt out, it's all subject to the rate plan. That's just the reality of it. What we're hoping is that we can fully utilize the things that are special about these types of systems. Any system with an inverter are capable of these other things: voltage support, frequency regulation, discharging against feeder peaks, being a sink. So there are these other amazing things that we can get to down the road, and we're exploring those. Utilities across the nation are exploring those. It's really interesting that these homes are capable of that, just not quite doing it right now. The other thing that's interesting about the utility relationship in a home that operates like this is, and Ann teed me up once again, so thank you again, Ann. When you talk about these homes in aggregation, homes behind the feeder, you can now view all these homes as a fleet. And just because one home might be using more energy than it's producing, there might be 3 or 4 that aren't. Maybe they're on vacation, or maybe they're just a lower power user. So what if you can move energy around ubiquitously? This is all just virtual at this point. But what if you can move energy around behind a feeder within a community, within a microgrid, to best distribute and use that energy and not overtax grid assets at the feeder level or down the line? That's where these things really get interesting. And then if you can go to the next slide, Alexi. So that's what we're aiming for at Jasper. Again, Anne kind of alluded to this. Jasper is coming out of the ground right now. These photographs were taken last weekend. We're building our models. We're going to go to production here, sales in October. Jasper is the first of its kind in the country. This is 2,900 lots that will be built over the next 10 years. Every home in this community will meet the ION performance specification, whether we build it or not. So in addition to an architectural review guideline or architectural guidelines about the colors you can use or your roof, it also has a performance guideline. Your home must do X, Y, Z, or you can't build it in this community. The community itself will be net zero. So all the street lights, landscape, pumps, fountain, or we don't have any fountains, the pool pumps, all the amenities will be powered off a large solar array that's integrated into the community center, and some ground mount that will be placed around the community in a thoughtful way. And the community itself will operate at a net zero cost and implemented at a very reasonable way. And the goal is actually to drive the HOA fees for the community as low as we can by not encumbering additional utility costs to run amenities. So if we can keep that all microgrid, if we can keep all that within the community behind those meters, it benefits the homeowners. Not only do they have the peace of mind that they're living in a sustainable, well thought out energy, net neutral energy community, but they're also seeing the benefits in their HOA fees. So the HOA fees they're paying for go to the cool things: trails, open spaces, pools, racquetball courts, tennis courts, dog parks. That's where people want to spend their money, not paying for the lights to be on at the community center. So we just said, let's just get rid of that. Let's spend the money where it makes sense. The other thing that's interesting about Jasper is because every home will have a small solar array and energy storage in it, Jasper built out will essentially be a 6 megawatt hour power plant. So every home will operate to cover itself, to be an anti-duck curve home, to harvest energy when it makes sense, to go off grid when it makes sense, and support the grid and benefit the homeowner by way of really low utility bills through that really awesome rate plan. But in the future, as I was speaking to earlier, where we have the ability to maybe do frequency regulation or voltage regulation, or discharge against peak periods, or act as a sink and store energy when the utility calls for it and needs it, this community becomes a clean, renewable energy power plant because of the asset that we're putting in place as the builder, and all the utility has to do is find a way to access it. So it's really a unique proposition, something we're really, really excited about. Models are going up now, like I said. We're going to start selling. We think it's pretty interesting. Again, these homes are going to be market value homes that have all the benefits of the ION platform. That's probably enough about Jasper for now. Next slide. And then the other thing I wanted to cover, just because I wanted to make sure that this wasn't viewed as a unique proposition, and again, Anne did a great job kind of spreading the love. We're special in that some of the work that we've done with the utility and some of the things that they've enabled for us make this a very viable proposition for us today. But there are some other really amazing projects that I'm acutely aware of in the U.S. going on right now. This first project, this one in Utah, is incredible. Rocky Mountain Power, their utility, have done some amazing things working with this developer on a large multifamily project. They actually are going to be the first to harness a zoning community and directly control, discharge, charge, regulate with Sona batteries and inverters through this multifamily community. So I wanted to make sure I put huge props out to this. The work that utility is doing with this developer is just amazing, amazing stuff. Up in the Northeast, some really cool things in the wholesale market are being being harnessed. There's some different regulation up there that allows homes and aggregators to act as wholesale marketing or wholesale energy providers. Really interesting there. And then down the Southeast, obviously disaster resistance, a big thing, hurricanes, natural disasters like that, flooding, these types of VPPs and solar and storage are really unique assets in that they provide so many solutions, not just load shifting, but disaster resistance or off-grid capabilities, or all these other things that we can conceive that are struggles the utility deals with every day. So I wanted to make sure that I talked about some of the other things that are going on in the world because they're so important. Really great work going on out there. And then with that, I think I'll turn it back over to Lexi.
Thank you, Jeff. That was fascinating. Wow. Fantastic work. I wish my home was like that. All right, so I just want to tell you those on the webinar about a couple of resources that might be interesting to you. One, NBI just recently released a brand new, highly updated Getting to Zero Buildings database, focuses on commercial, industrial, and multifamily projects. So it's just the single family piece is not in here, but there's an overlap with multifamily. The database, you can see the URL up on the top. These are just some screenshots from it. If I were to scroll down, you can see we have, it shows 583 showing there. It's actually over 600 now online, and it's live updated. You can zoom in. So for example, here are all the net zero energy buildings in California. You can see these filters on the left. You can click California or unclick the rest. You can do things like filter by state, or let's say we want to see all the education facilities within California. It filters in. The list on the bottom updates, and you can see info about these projects, their energy performance, as well as size and so forth. There's two tabs. On the left is map and list. On the right is analysis, up in that upper left corner, sorry. So here are all those projects, some graphs and charts. You can see the growth curve, which Anne mentioned, we're early, but it sure looks exponential and substantial. You can do the same thing with the filters here. Like, let's say we want to look at the larger ZE buildings, what's going on in that market, or the larger education ZE buildings, and all the stuff, auto updates. Lots of cool stuff you can do with it. Feel free to get in there, make your own graphics, use them, share them, just attribute, as you can see here. You can generate PowerPoints or PDFs, different things from it. So feel free. There are the links therein as hyperlinks, and when you get the slides after the webinar, you'll be able to go ahead and take it and run with it. Please do. There's an intro and a demo in a webinar that we did a couple months back when we released this thing that's on demand recorded. You can go ahead and check it out at your leisure. We have a registry for zero energy projects for any multifamily 4 units and up, or C&I, commercial, industrial, institutional projects. We'd love to get them in there. What's your number? What do you got? Get your projects in there. The same goes for Anne and Richard with the Team Zero inventory. Anne, I know, as you said, as soon as you release something, you find out about another project, but we always want to learn about more, as many as possible. And I'm also confident we're not listing them all, but we're trying to get as comprehensive as we can to really show how this market is growing. One other thing I wanted to mention briefly, we are piloting a new certification program, NBI, in partnership with ResNet. It leverages the HERS rating environment. There are 2 million plus HERS rated homes around the country. And actually just this morning, I saw it looks like HERS is going to be coming to California in much greater strength, a better alignment of Title 24 with HERS, which is exciting to see that moving along as well. This certification is basically a mark for zero energy designed homes to be certified as that zero performance level. So home buyers can know that they're getting a great product when they buy that home. Builders can use it to distinguish their homes in the market, and program managers, utilities, and implementers can take this thing and use it as part of their programs and help catalyze the market for zero energy homes. If you're interested in piloting, please let me know. I'd be happy to tell you lots more about it. And you can see the website there at the bottom of that page. Oh, sorry, newbuildings.org/zero energy homes. We have a lot of resources. I'm not going to go through all this. There are a ton on the NBI website, newbuildings.org, lots of stuff for anyone interested in zero energy or very high performance buildings of one kind or another. Go check it out, lots of stuff there. Finally, I want to invite you all to join us at the Getting to Zero Forum in October in Oakland, California at the Oakland Marriott. We'll have a several-day event. It's the premier global event dedicated to advancing zero energy buildings across the built environment. And it's going to be a great event full of real leaders in this space and thought leaders. So please do join us there. We have a couple minutes for questions, and then contact info for all of us will be shown in the last slide. Connie, any interesting questions that have popped up?
We have quite a few questions, so many I think that we're going to have to pass on these questions to the individual speakers for follow-up in many cases, because there's just many questions. So I do want to, we had quite a few questions that were directed about the definition of zero energy ready, as well as its HERS equivalent in that place. So I don't know who wants to answer that.
I can tackle that, since zero energy ready is a term that we use in the inventory. I'll respond to the way we use it. It's actually kind of a catch-all category. Zero sounds so precise, and yet not so much. Zero energy ready represents projects that may have solar, but it's not quite enough to meet all the demand at that project site. It also includes projects that may be energy efficient enough that without solar, they're not there, but they do have capacity to add solar and would get there. It also includes projects that may be modeled as capable of achieving zero energy, but don't have performance data demonstrating that they have in fact achieved zero operating energy. So because of the numerous permutations of that, we found it simplest to just aggregate all of those into a single category. Now, in terms of its HERS equivalent, it's roughly around HERS 50 and lower, very much in line with the way Jeff described Mandalay's process. So once you add solar, you're very close to getting to zero energy, or capable of getting there with either a little bit more solar or some behavioral changes. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Anne. We had a question. Has NBI tracked the type of heating and cooling systems in buildings, and do you see a move towards hydronic heating and cooling? It's likely for Alexi. Oh, Alexi, you're muted.
Sorry, yes. You know, often, yes. One thing that we often see in buildings that are using hydronic heating and cooling, and there are quite a few, just presented a paper on that at a conference recently. One of the biggest benefits that you can get out of using radiant technologies for conditioning in homes, as well as any other building, is that you can separate the ventilation from the conditioning, and that can be a pretty significant benefit in terms of energy and also in terms of comfort and indoor air quality, to have a dedicated ventilation system that is capable of providing the ventilation you need separately from the space conditioning. And in the interest of time, I'll just leave it at that. But the answer is yes, those are growing, present and growing.
All right, well, we've reached 11 o'clock, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today and thank our panelists for being here with us. We really appreciate your insight and expertise. And just a reminder, we will be sending out a follow-up email tomorrow to all registrants that includes the resources mentioned here today, including a link to the inventory, as well as the links to the on-demand recording of the session and the slides that were used. So just another thank you to everybody, and we really appreciate having you here today. Bye-bye.